the fundamental problem with our cities in the industrial model is that we're taking resources out of the earth, we're using them, and then we're sort of wasting them and polluting the earth system. So it's an open system rather than a closed system of living. The impact of that is that we're getting more intense rainfalls, we're getting higher temperatures, and therefore a lot of informal settlements in India and in many other countries are being severely affected by this. And the other big issue that we now understand is that having roads in cities with traffic that's stationary creates enormous problems in terms of pollution and noise. But most importantly, this road is a tremendously valuable piece of real estate in the city. And if you paralyze that piece of real estate by having stationary cars, from an economic point of view in the city, it's a complete disaster. So any idea that having big roads inside cities as being an economically advantageous thing, we now understand that that's not true. And most big world-class cities are now trying to take the roads out.
Now you see that industry is the biggest consumer of resources in the nation. So that's one simple outcome. The total bar graph on industry is the tallest. But where is it getting its energy from? And here are the answers. Gray is for coal, orange is for petroleum, petroproducts, and what is coming out as yellow is direct electricity or power. Now, power in the national economy is not a direct energy source, it's created by something. So I'll come to that graph separately, but essentially industry is consuming that much energy in primary terms as power, that much as coal and that much as petroleum. You will also see that 86% of that power is produced by coal. This is where the carbon emission is coming from. This is industry, you can say this is what the factory gate gets in. This much as coal in wagons, this much as electricity in wires, and this much as diesel in tankers, for example. So in a very simple way, this is what the economy is all about. By the way, this much as gas in pipelines. This gives us the metabolism of the industrial economy of India in that year 1997-98 and tells us the relative importance of the consumption of industry versus all the other sectors. That agriculture also is sizable, and also interesting is that it's all electrical. So agriculture is actually a consumer of nearly 100% electricity. Where is it? It's unpaid for. It is that electricity that is given to the farmers free to pump water, which is screwing up the water resources of the. So once you see this graph, these questions start striking you.
We seem to limit most of our explorations and interpretations to the physical form of the city. We have a great many scholarly articles written on, say, the physical form, the expression, the streets, the centralities, the nodes, the various different planning principles that are derived from this, and so on. But rarely do you see any kind of a discourse that examines the relationship of that city to its landscape, to the natural surroundings. Looking at the specific case of Hampi itself, when we start examining the relationship of this city, it was a city of 600,000 people. So moving beyond the merely architectural or the artistic, one of the things that strikes you about this place is that it's really very, very difficult to draw an image of Hampi. Unlike how you can draw a quick plan of, say, ancient Athens or Fatehpur Sikri or Shahjahanabad or any of these examples that we are familiar with, it's really hard. But what's important is it was not a unicentric or a singly fortified city. It had many centers. It was a polycentric, polynodal city. And why was it polycentric, polynodal? There can be many explanations, but the most obvious ones that strikes you is that that is what the regional landscape is like. Thank God they didn't have bulldozers or dynamite, otherwise they would have flattened the landscape, I presume, and made one single city. But what they did was, using this landscape as it was, each part of an urban core, if I can use the word, actually sits nestled within the landscape. So it sits between landscapes that are defined by boulders, valley systems, rivers, and so on.
So how are the resources made and available, and to whom? This is the next part of it. So one is the production system. They need to be produced and distributed. So they are produced through labor using technology, whatever. Fishing is a technology, whichever way you do it, and distributed through the markets. That works under what is broadly defined as a capitalist economic system. Right? We don't want to go deeper into it, but the way of distributing, fundamentally the price mechanism that you buy. Producers produce for a market in exchange for a price. So however, as it developed, this old argument of resource scarcity got more blurred and complex, okay? Because technology improvement increased the efficient usage, and new resources were discovered, new oil resources, gas, coal, and so on, and mechanization of agriculture, new seeds, higher productive crops, intense farming, so on happened, irrigation, or you get it from somewhere else. So people in developing countries argue that industrial countries contributed to the bulk of pollution, and they now need development space. So the idea of development space is important in the finite globe. They need consumption rights, resource use and pollution rights, fossil fuel use capabilities, till the world is somewhat equitable in resource utilization and development. Development of institution for alternatives will take time, right? It's not something which you can do overnight, late time, and they need space and time for that, and they can't stop development. So moreover, developed society is better located to take care of the environment, not a poor society, because they need resources to do that. Now this is exemplified in the critique made by David Satterwhite on that equation, PAT. He said it is not PAT, it is CAT, it is consumption, not population. Right? So then completely changes the geography. It's not developed or developing in general, it is in particular rich and poor.